Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas. Hi, this is Matt, and you listen to Bluegrass Jam Along, the podcast for anyone and everyone who loves bluegrass. Hey everybody, welcome back to Bluegrass Jam Along. My guest this week is John Wirtz, who, with his partner Moira, runs something called Sore Fingers over here in the UK. And it's a music camp. It's been running for 30 years, specialising in bluegrass and old-time music. And it's a really integral part of the British and European bluegrass world, and has provided a basis for thousands of people to learn instruments and develop their skills over the years, and also brought in some of the kind of most internationally renowned players of the music to teach. So I was fascinated to chat to John about it and just to hear a bit about how Sore Fingers started, how it developed and grew, the kind of role it's played in music education and the bluegrass community in the UK, and just some of the people they've had through the doors over the years. It's a really, really interesting community building thing. And I'm going to go down to Sore Fingers in April when they do their week course, because I'm going to chat to some of the tutors there. Some have been on the podcast before, some I haven't spoken to before. But I'm also going to chat to some of the students and just kind of pick up a bit of that community vibe while I'm down there. And I'm really looking forward to that. But first off, we're going to hear from John all about how Sore Fingers came about and kind of what it means to him, to the people who come, and kind of the place it has in the British and world bluegrass community. I'll stick some links in the show notes. There are still places for some of the courses in April. They also run a weekend in October, kind of an interim thing. So I'll put links and you can go and find all about that. Here it is. Here's my chat with John Wirtz of Sore Fingers. John, welcome to Bluegrass Jam Along.
Well, glad to be there.
And for people listening in, it's been quite some technical journey for us to get this far, so I'm delighted we're even talking to each other and managing to record it. So it's great to chat to you. We're going to talk about Sore Fingers UK Fiddle Camp. For those who don't know about it, can you just give us a quick kind of rundown of what Sore Fingers is?
Well, it's a model that came originally from across the water in the US. They call these music camps generally, and there are all types of music camp over in the US, not just bluegrass ones. There's a whole range of them. Here they tend to be called workshops or what have you, residential workshops. But the basis of it is that you hire a place that's got classrooms, so a school, and preferably a school that's got accommodation. And the tutors get flown in, and the students all book and come and stay on the accommodation and learn with, the cream of US and bluegrass and old time. And this model was copied in 1996 by my predecessors, and they set up Sore Fingers Week. We were privileged, that's Moira and I. Moira's my partner, and she's heavily involved with this organisation. We went there as sound engineers, and actually ended up never leaving. We carried on attending the events, on the team of organisers right from the word go. So that's it in a nutshell. Obviously it's evolved. We've never been to a camp in the US, so we don't know what they're like. But we imagine that what we're doing is pretty similar to what they're doing over there. But we've sort of put our own stamp on it, or rather an British stamp on it. So it's different. It feels different to an American style camp, but only in sort of culture way. The music's the same.
And did you, with the sort of the US tutors coming in from the beginning, was that part of the model from the start?
Yeah, it was. It was recognised that to be successful, we needed to provide the real deal. Despite the fact that in this country we've got plenty of very talented players, especially now, but there were back then who could have taught these lessons and done the job well. However, I think that what the fans out there really wanted was to learn from the genuine article, and the genuine article comes from North America. So we started out with 3 tutors: Pete Wernick, Jody Stecker, and Kate Brislin. We had 3 classes and 50 students, and it's grown from there. Now we're running sort of 18, 19 courses, with 12 Americans coming. It's sort of reached a big size. It's as big as some of the American camps.
And you've had an extraordinary list of tutors over the years, just, looking at some of the people that people get to come and learn from. It is literally just a list of some of the best pickers in the world, isn't it?
Well, I think if you're going to, spend £1,000 on a flight, you may as well fly the best you can recruit, really. We just went for the top. We didn't sort of think, well, we're going to try and get, some of the lesser known. I mean, in America, there's a lot of bluegrass players. There's many that we've never heard of all over the country that play, really well and can probably teach. But, names are important. If you, I've just been looking at a Jerry Douglas website. Well, it tells me interestingly that he suddenly got interested in teaching. So maybe we'll get Jerry Douglas one day. Up to now, he's not been willing to come because he doesn't teach camps. But we've always gone for, the best names we can get and those that we think will attract the students. There is Soul Fingers is an expensive event to run. So you need you can't run it on a whim where you might get 30 people joining up. It's not going to work that way. So there is a bit of a commercial aspect where a big name is going to attract more people than someone that's maybe not known at all. They might be just as good as teachers, but the name helps a great deal in promoting the course. So we continue to always aim at the best people we can get hold of.
And of course, the joy of it from a student point of view is not only do you get to sit in a room in relatively small groups with people and learn direct from them, you also get to see them play in the evenings as well.
Yeah, early on we didn't do so much in the concert. We didn't do a lot of performance, but in fact, it was my partner Moira that identified this and said, we've got to get them playing. We've got them in this place for a week, and they're only playing at the end of the week in a tutor concert. They do, they're featured in that for 2 or 3 numbers, but they weren't getting people weren't seeing them play. So now we've got showcases every night. You think after a day's work they might be a bit shy of going out and performing, but not at all. You can't stop them. They just want to play all the time. It's absolutely amazing. Who wants to play? Oh yeah, I'll do it. And they put these sets together in record time. They'll put a 40-minute set together in about 15 minutes. I've watched them rehearse this, and they're so good at it. It's their experience and their familiarity with the way bluegrass works. And they take chances, which they perhaps wouldn't in normal concerts because they're, at Soul Fingers, they've got a captive audience. They've won them over anyway, so they can kind of do anything they want, and they'll still get a round of applause at the end.
Well, and that's one of the interesting things about music like bluegrass and old time and the kind of social stuff that people get together and jam is, some of the clips you see on social media from stuff, you definitely get the sense that some of the most exciting music happens away from the audiences and stuff as well, and just people will sit around and play for each other, and so you get to sit in on that to a certain extent, don't you? It's not like a big public gig. It's you're part of a kind of one-time thing where people come together in different combos and you get to see a bit of that happen. We'll be right back with you just after this. The long-awaited Hill Country series from Collins Guitars represents a new voice in their acoustic lineup. Rooted deep in the bluegrass world, these new Dreadnought and OM models feature a strong fundamental tone with a dry, warm and woody character that's sure to catch the attention of players who hold the vintage instruments of the 30s in their highest regard. Watch world-class pickers Jake Workman, Kenny Smith and Bob Minner perform with new Hill Country instruments on the Collins Guitars YouTube channel, and learn more at collinsguitars.com.
Well, you do, and you know, you could be sat in the bar later on, and the tutors go in the bar, and they just have informal picking sessions, and you know, nobody's excluded. I mean, you know, students, those that are able enough, will go and join in, you know, and they're generous. They'll give them breaks, or offer them breaks and stuff like that. It's not a closed shop at all. I think that is just a part of kind of bluegrass and old-time culture, is that of all the music that I know, I'm familiar with, bluegrass and old time is the most session friendly. Well, Irish is too, but Irish in a way is slightly different. Is that you have to know the tune, whereas in bluegrass you can get away with improvisation, which you know, you may not be able to in other things. But it's certainly very, very social, and I think that's a big part of its popularity. You know, but yes, you know, their accessibility to the tutors is 100%. You know, we don't hide them away. They have their corners they can go and rest in when they need some peace and quiet. But other than that, they're in the same refectory. They have their breakfast and meals all with the students. You know, after classes, they're all milling around in the bars and around the site. You can just walk up to them, have a chat, and buy them a drink, or sit and play. You know, it's quite different, because, I mean, Moira and I used to run Didmartin Festival, and occasionally we had people who taught at Soul Fingers come and perform at the festival. And even though we already knew them, that relationship was very different. You didn't kind of get any time with them. You know, they'd get on, they'd do their stage set, then they might need to go back to their hotel, or they'd be wandering around the site or whatnot, but you didn't get that sort of intimacy you do at Soul Fingers. At Soul Fingers, you spend time with them. You know, you'll get to sort of, you'll start talking about other things than music, you know, where they live, what life's like, where they come from, that kind of thing. You know, and you don't get that chance at a festival, because they're there and they're gone, you know, very quickly. So, you know, that's a big selling point, I think. And you're right, there's a lot of people that have no particular ambition to become great musicians, but they just enjoy being in a classroom with one of their heroes. You know, they enjoy that presence, being close to it and hearing the stories, because you know, they do a lot of teaching, but they also tell a lot of stories about the road and who they met and the things they, you know, happened to them.
Yeah.
Some which you can't repeat.
And so for the students, so you run two courses, don't you? There's kind of an Easter week course, and then there's a shorter course in October, and the kind of most of the American tutors come over for the longer course. And what's, for a student's point of view, what's the sort of shape of that week if you're coming as a participant?
So the week is 5 days. You get lessons Monday through to Friday, and you get about 5 3/4 hours of classroom teaching. You know, there are breaks, and then there's other activities. You can join a student band and perform in the tutor concert, and then the showcases later on. And we also run supplementary electives on all sorts of subjects, like, you know, arranging. The most important is that we actually do a sort of 3-day session on how to jam, how to join a jam, and how it all works. Because a lot of newcomers into the scene, they see these sessions and they go, how the hell do they do that? How do they know what chords come in next? You know, and you know, as we explain to the students, music's not random. It follows some quite defined rules, and if you know those rules, it opens the door. So they come in, and if they chose, say banjo, they'll get lessons all week. They usually start gently, and they build up the complexity as they go through. And we don't filter students. We don't ask them what their level is. We generally let the tutor kind of make an assessment, because we've kind of gauged where most of the majority of the students are over the years. And then, those that don't feel able to join what we call the main classes are then encouraged to go into what we've newly called foundation classes, where we're teaching them the foundations of bluegrass and how it works, so that they can then, sort of go out and go to sessions outside and join sessions at festivals. And it's quite, it was a very popular workshop last year. We were piloting it really, but we've got it really organised this year. So it's going to be an interesting workshop for people who are sort of struggling a bit on stepping into a session, And
there's also opportunities for people to take what they've picked up during the day and play with other people in the evening, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah. So in the evening, once all of the organised stuff is finished, people will jam into the night. And there's those that want to be in a raucous session in the bar, which is a noisy session. It's not particularly musical at times, but it's good time. It's everybody's kind of enjoying that social thing. There's others that want to be in a quiet room and maybe, harmonise, sing quietly, and maybe put things into practice that they learned during the day. And that happens. There are classrooms that stay open late at night, and they can do that there, and they're not so disturbed. But the same principles, occur. Apply. Someone walks up to a door and they see a session in a classroom. They just open the door and go in. Nobody's going to exclude them. They might decide to join in or not. Or you can sit and listen, whatever. But there is opportunity to put stuff into practice or clarify. You might be taught something and you haven't quite got it, and the tutor's at the bar, so you just say, hey, could you clarify that for me? And they're very generous. They'll sit with you for 10 minutes and explain something again or show it to them again. So it's you wake up, you have breakfast, and it's music then all day. The only time you don't do music is when you're drinking coffee and eating your meals. And the rest of the time, music is all round you. It's totally, you escape everything. You come out of, my favourite story is that, oddly enough, it's quite topical, but when we went to war in 1992, we were at war the day we started at Sore Fingers. The ceasefire was called during Sore Fingers, and nobody knew about it until they got home, because nobody was interested. Nobody was reading the papers or listening to the news. They were at Sore Fingers, on a high, and that could happen again. It was, but it's that, and it's a good escape. It's good for people to just get away and do something completely different. So.
Well, it's really interesting what you said about kind of mixed ability groups and not worrying about that too much. And it is really interesting, isn't it? Because even in a week, like in terms of actually teaching people specific things, it's going to be as much about ideas and things they can then take away and unpack in their playing for like the rest of the year, isn't it? You can't show anybody how to play everything in a week, but you can inspire people and you can excite them and you can give them things to then go away and work on in their own playing, can't you?
Well, I think, that's the philosophy of teaching anyway. When kids go to school, say secondary school, and they start learning maths, and some of them, they just don't quite get it, but it doesn't mean they're no good at it. They probably understand, they do enough to pass their exams, but they've no idea what they're going to use it for.
Yeah.
And so they're not necessarily kind of showing a bunch of skill within a year or anything. It's much later when they need to apply that logic. And I think in music it's the same. You know, they go in, they start. I mean, all the people that go into main classes, a lot of them can play. You know, they can hold their own playing rhythm in a session. They'll probably know the 3-chord trick. They'll probably know sort of 6 or 7 bluegrass songs and be able to sing along to them. What these courses sort of maybe take them a bit further, certainly in terms of instrumental technique. You know, start showing them scales and how to hold the instrument. You know, it just gives them a little more depth. I mean, most of the people that come are self-taught. Very few have had formal lessons. You know, so, but what they do is they take this stuff away with them. And if they, you know, if they're really disciplined, they think, right, I'm going to do, you know, 20 minutes every other night on stuff that tutor showed me, you know, that practice will pay off. Because actually, like you said, in a week, we can't turn them into amazing flat pickers. We can only give them the tools and the knowledge to become amazing flat pickers, and they'll achieve that only by practicing for hours and hours. I mean, this is why the tutors are always playing, because that's what they do for a living. So they need to be in tip-top condition, playing-wise, all the time, and this is why they do this amazing stuff. You know, I watch things that just astonish me. You know how they never drop a note, and they sound absolutely fantastic, even if they're just playing in the, you know, in the back room during tea break. But it's because they play all the time.
Yeah. Well, and that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Is you know, I know you've had some students that have ended up coming back as teachers as well.
Well, you know, it is a kind of pot for creating talent. I mean, the best known example is the Karavik sisters. You know, they turned up, they were 14. They were pretty astonishing because they could play, they were already what I'd call pretty competent on several instruments. You know, being sisters, they sang quite nicely together. So they came year after year for, you know, I don't know, sort of 5, 6 years, and then suddenly they got to a point where they got the confidence to have a go at the professional scene. And so they took a year out, which was they both got offered places at university, took a year out and had a crack at the folk scene. And to a degree it worked. You know, they became quite popular. But, you know, as musicians, I mean, they developed some of their skills at Sawfingers. They had talent anyway. So we were only going to kind of fine-tune that and provide them with a platform where they could develop. And of course, the big thing for them is they met a lot of American tutors and made contacts. You know, sadly, it's difficult to go out there to perform because of their work permit system. Yeah. But, you know, Charlotte taught guitar at Bryan Sutton's camp. And I mean, that is like, you know, it's unbelievable that, you know, she'd get invited, really. Not because she's not good enough. I mean, she's up there. She's a great, great player. And that Bryan Sutton obviously identified. But it's the difficulty of getting there. You know, Leon Hunt has been knocking on the door of teaching over there for years. But, you know, getting the work permit to do it is, you know, it's such a gamble. You know, and it costs such a lot of money to do. So we don't feed a lot to over there, but there's certainly, you know, we've got a number of players here who could easily teach over there. And of course, so if we come to the October weekend, at one point we realised that, you know, a year between events was a hell of a long time, and we thought an interim weekend would be nice. And it also gave us the opportunity to showcase the UK talent. So, of course, the Karaviks were very soon, you know, on the teaching roster. And, you know, many others, you know. And it kind of makes me feel a little bit better because, as I said at the beginning, the success of Sore Fingers is largely based on the fact that we bring in the genuine players from America. But I always felt slightly uncomfortable in the sense that, I could employ UK people to do this job, and they'd do it equally well. But there's the perception. Now, having the October weekend kind of fills that gap, and we feel that we've given the UK talent the chance to establish themselves as teachers, and a lot of them do teaching, and I mean they're tremendous. There's loads of really good players, coming out. There's a great generation at the moment on the British scene, and what's really nice is that a lot of them are playing trad. I've got a reputation for not being trad. I don't know why particularly, because I kind of like trad just as much as I like progressive. But, there was a lot of people going, it's all changing. The youngsters don't want to do the trad thing. But actually, there's loads of bands doing it. The Vanguards, Paul Armour, and all those guys are knocking on the door for teaching. So, that's really good for the British scene.
Well, and it's not just the British scene, is it? I know you get a lot of students coming from all over Europe as well.
We do. We've always had a good following from Europe, actually, from quite early on, because amazingly, Sore Fingers is one of the few camps around. I mean, there's a camp in Germany. There's one in Czechoslovakia. There's one in Belgium that's been well established for a long time, but that's not purely bluegrass. It sort of mix and matches. But it's not. I don't think that the other camps have actually quite got the spirit of it somehow. La Roche runs a sort of camp as well, but they get the same people every year. It doesn't look like they're kind of very imaginative with it. And I think we're quite rightly recognised as the best camp in Europe, or rather the best camp outside of North America. Now, it's not a boast we wish to make, but we do know we're held in high regard over there, because we very rarely get a refusal. The only people that don't come to teach at Sore Fingers are those that actually don't do it at all. So it's not as though they're turning us down because we're here. They don't do it in America either.
Well, and you've been very good about not dropping names so far, but just give us a sense of some of the tutors that have come over the years, because there's an extraordinary list.
The trouble is I forget it. I actually have a list because I have to remind myself. But I mean, a big name. Well, Trischka, Tony Trischka. He came, I think, the third year or the second year, and immediately we kind of had a bit of we hit it off, and he's getting on a bit, Tony. I don't think he wanted to come, really. He didn't want to travel, basically. It wasn't not wanting to come, and I sent him a photograph, which is a favourite photograph of mine that was taken at Sore Fingers, and I don't know what I'm talking about. I must have been talking rubbish, because Tony Trischka was just, laughing his head off next to me. And it was that's what happened that week between him and me and a few others. And I just always got on with him. But he's a great name. I mean, he's one of the legends of the kind of second generation, really. We had all that first generation, Flat and Scruggs, Bill Monroe, all those guys. And then came the college boys, from New York. Baylor Flack, Trischka, even Bruce Molsky, all those guys, they went to college and suddenly they were, usurping the South by winning awards with their albums. And Trischka was part of that scene. I'm going to have to get my list out, which is just here, just to give me a reminder of some of the guys that have been. Kathy Kavler was a super singing star. I mean, she's absolutely nuts, that lady. We loved having her. I'm trying to think. This is it. Leon Hunt stands out there as well. Although he's British, that guy owes nothing to to the Americans. He's an amazing banjo player, and he's certainly in my top 5. Guitarists like Dan Crary, these guys are a bit, they're getting a bit old now. They're less on the scene. There's a kind of change of sort of personnel. Greg Cahill was he was greatly received. The one guy who was legendary and that I didn't know was Fletcher Bright, who came and taught fiddle. And we were struggling to fill a fiddle class, and I just started asking, the American tutors, I said, I need to get this fiddle class working. Who shall I get? And they said, everybody said Fletcher Bright. I went, who's Fletcher Bright? And he turned out Fletcher Bright was a huge property developer in Chattanooga, millionaire. But his passion outside of his company was bluegrass fiddle, and he could explain to you how anybody played. He'd studied everybody's styles, and he was an old guy, but he had boundless energy. He was absolutely brilliant, this guy. Anyway, sadly he passed away. I mean, he was getting on. I'm talking fiddle. I mean, we had Stuart Duncan who just delighted everybody. I mean, the man, as soon as the bow hits the strings, it's him. Even if you're not in the room, you went, oh, Stuart's playing. It's David Greer. The man never runs out of notes to play. And he's a character. Tony Furtado, Matt Flinner, Casey Dreesen. I mean, it's a massive list. I think there's about 180 of them, so I'm not going to go through all of them. But I'm trying to look at the big names,
And some of the more recent generation as well. You've had some members of Punch Brothers teach, haven't you? There's been a
Noam Pikelny's been, and I'm hoping that Chris Eldridge will come next year, because I had Tim Stafford booked, and then Tim had to pull out, so I was left needing a tutor, and I just emailed everybody, including Chris, and I don't know what it was this year, but everybody was busy, so I kind of struggled to get anybody. But we'd gone through all the the big names we could think of, but Chris said that he'd be interested in 2027. So I'm hoping that he'll come, because he's another fabulous guy, fabulous player. And they're all humble, these guys. They come and they're not, they don't play the superstars. They just get in class and teach and mix in with everybody, and it's just lovely. It's a really nice. We don't encourage that kind of approach to it. We're all there together to have a good time and learn, but we don't need ego. Ego doesn't make you a great player, basically. Another guy I contacted this year was Jack Lawrence. He couldn't make it. Well, Jack was legendary for playing with Doc Watson after Merle died.
Yeah.
Got really into Doc's style, which was pretty unique. But anyway.
And this year's list's great, isn't it? Tony Trischka's back this year. You've got strong people like Michael Daves, Jacob Jolliff. Mike Compton's come in. It's a really strong tutor lineup this year.
Well, we kind of never, looking back, I wouldn't say that any year we've had a bad lineup. They've all been pretty equal, because you get a team of people, and it's really what they produce as a collective. When they're in class, they're teaching their own instrument, so I don't see that. I've never been into a class deliberately, because I don't want to feel that the tutors to feel that I'm there kind of assessing them.
Yeah.
We book them, we go in good faith. We usually we know who to book. I mean, we've made mistakes, one always will, but in general terms, the tutors turn up and they're great. But when they get together, you get a collective effort, and that sort of to a degree levels things out. So you don't get this one shining over another. You know, there's the odd one that sort of John Moore is a hell of a presence, but he does it musically. He doesn't do it as a, you know, he's tall and he's a sort of cowboy. You know, his other sideline is ranching, and he rides horses, and he's an impressive guy to have around. And when he gets on stage, he's sort of got this aura about him, but it doesn't come out as arrogance or leadership. It just, you know, he's just got a big personality, and it, you know, helps the show. So when you come to the end of the week, you go, oh, well, that was a great week, you know, and you end up saying that every year, and you think, well, when's it going to go wrong? And I think it can't. It can't go wrong. I think once we're all in that school, it's very difficult. You'd have a job to break it. You know, you'd have to really want to break it, because it just runs itself. I mean, you know, we just set the scene, and then off they go, and you know, we just watch everybody having a good time. Of course, have a good time ourselves.
And do you think that kind of rural location helps in that, you know, you were talking before about being in a bit of a bubble for the week, and do you think that helps people to stay in the moment and be there without getting distracted by other stuff?
I don't know if it would matter that we were in a town. I mean, you know, we hadn't planned this move. It was something that came about, and, you know, in looking at it, we realised that we'd outgrown the old place anyway.
Yeah.
So it was time for a move, and our priority was to look for a school in a rural location. Right, the Kingham Hill was quite rural. I mean, that was quite away from any town. We're only kind of 20 minutes from the centre of Basingstoke. We're an hour from London on the train. So we're kind of closer to, you know, and Surrey's a lot busier than, well, North Hampshire is a lot busier than where we were before. But I wouldn't really want to be located in the middle of a town, because the nice thing is that at some point during the week you want some peace and quiet, and the grounds are big enough to just wander off and have a little walk, you know, in the woods or something, and relax. And you can do that in a rural setting, whereas if we're in town, you'd kind of end up wanting to catch a bus to get out. So it's a preference to be in a rural setting, but it's not, you know, we don't particularly want to be lost in the middle of nowhere, because, you know, we need it to be convenient for people to get to, and this school's much better situated, you know, near main line into London. I mean, the station's a 15-minute bus ride, you know, so it's easy, you know, it's much easier, and it's nearer Heathrow as well, which helps.
Well, yeah, I guess we've got a lot of European students, you know, that definitely makes it a lot easier. Yeah,
I mean, a lot, they either come in by Eurostar or they fly into Heathrow, but communications are pretty good. You can get down to Woking Station and catch a train, you know, bus from Heathrow direct to Woking, so that works quite well. I mean, you know, they mostly get there in a day. You know, someone from, you know, some Switzerland, Austria, somewhere like that, they could fly and get to Silfingers in the day, you know, without too much trouble. So that helps too, you know.
And it's a big year this year with the move and the sort of 30th anniversary of the event starting. You know, it certainly doesn't feel like anything's slowing down.
Well, it's not. I mean, the big knock was COVID. You know, we lost 2 years, and, you know, we didn't know whether it would pick up afterwards. Now, what we found is that actually there's no lack of enthusiasm for coming to Silfingers. You know, if we didn't have liabilities connected to COVID, we'd be absolutely fine. The event is viable, and we're getting enough people to service the bills. But the difficulty is that we took on loans to survive. You know, we had to do that, and we're having to pay them off, and that's quite a drain. But, you know, what the move has done is that suddenly we're reaching the target we've been setting ourselves for some years. I mean, since before COVID, I wanted to get to 300 students and not really achieved it. This year we have. But I don't. I mean, it's not COVID that caused it. I think that the cost of living, the uncertainty in the world. We thought things were calming down, only for it to start up again. Which is disappointing. But I think at the moment that that's the world we live in. But I think people were a bit more confident about the future this year. So they're still booking, which is great. We've still got bookings coming in. So it's that's a real bonus, and we've also had a brilliant effort. I've got to mention Philippa Ogden, who is on our team. She's taken over social media, and I think she's made quite a difference. We've reached out to people that we weren't reaching out to before, and that's helped grow the numbers. So and I think the move, it's made people curious. Because people are fickle, they'll come to a venue for years and never tell you that they're fed up with it. They won't say a thing, and then suddenly when you move, they go, "Oh yeah, I'm really glad you moved because I hated it," or whatever. It's a funny thing. They don't tend to, we have a day book, and we get complaints in it, but never anything that significant. And then we find out by accident that there's this disgruntlement that we didn't know about, so you change it and they all go, "Oh, thank God you did that." And you go, "Well, why didn't you tell us?" We don't see everything. Anyway, that's just the nature of if you stick your head above the parapet, you've got to take this stuff.
Well,
but, sorry.
No, I was going to say, it sounds like you've got a really sort of cool week planned for April. Are there still places left if people are interested?
Yeah, not on everything. I mean, we put a press release out a couple of days ago. It's available. There's a news page on the website. The site is easy. It's called sorefingers.co.uk. And if you go to the news page, there's an update on classes. The problem is, as soon as we put that update out, it's out of date. So things that, some classes have been full Tony Trischka has been full since last August.
Wow.
But, he's one of those that has that effect. Him, Bruce Molsky's another, he'll book up in 10 minutes. But yeah, the thing to do is just don't worry about it. Just send an email. You can even send a form, because if there's no place available, we'll not take any money from anybody. We'll just reply and say, "Look, sorry, that course is full." But the quickest way to get, because if you email and say, "Oh, is there a place on the so-and-so?" Well, I'll email, "Yeah, there is." And then it takes the guy 2 days to send a booking form, and in between, someone books the place and he loses out. So it's just as easy to send a form in. If we can't satisfy the customer's request, we tear it up, and that's the end of it. But at least we can deal with it straight away if there's a place. So I know that the two classes that are struggling are alto harp and ukulele. Then there are places on dobro. I can't remember what the press release said. We're so busy with the move. The move has generated an enormous amount of work, and new regulation and stuff. So a lot of other stuff has kind of been. What have I got? I've got a place on guitar. I've got 4 places on fiddle, 4 places on dobro. The bass has quite a few. I think there's about 6 or 7 places, but that's not unusual. The music development is also, there's about 7 places left on that. The big one is foundation, sort of people who are starting out. We've only got about 10 people on that altogether. And that amazes me, because I know there's hundreds of people out there who are setting out and, probably can play a bit, but not quite confident enough to get and sit in a session. So the way to get to that stage is to do a week at Sore Fingers, and then this summer will be much better than last summer's, because you'll be able to join in the sessions.
Yeah, well, even just to be around the music and the sessions in the evening, and to hear people play and hear people talk and just pick up a bit of a bit of magic from that would be an incredible thing for a beginner, wouldn't it?
So the huge difference, because when I started, I came into bluegrass and I could already play the guitar. I wasn't, the thing that hit me the most was the speed. So I had to work at that quite hard and then sort of getting the rhythm right, but, it was just a matter of sitting down and practicing. Now, I think that the idea of joining a session, the first bluegrass festival I went to, I didn't play a note, and I could play. I used to go to a bluegrass session, but to me, the sessions at the festival looked so competent, I just didn't dare join in. I thought, I'll look like I'll make a fool of myself, and it was a mistake actually, because I didn't realise how friendly the scene is. Now, the difference between a festival and Sore Fingers is that because you go there and you share a room with someone and you have your breakfast and your lunch with those people, you get close. By the end of the first day, you're sort of building a community. And when a guy says, we're going to pick over there tonight, it's an awful lot easier to walk over and sit in it, even if you're still a bit nervous about it, because you've broken the ice. Whereas at a festival, you pitch your tent, you've got people who are next to you, you'll get friendly with them. But, there's another sort of 300 or 400 people on the site that you don't know, and it's quite difficult to sort of get to know them. So I think that's where Sore Fingers scores high. By the end of the week, there's this community, and we noticed that we go to festivals a month after Sore Fingers, and the students, those that had met at Sore Fingers, were all congregating together. So they weren't on their own anymore. They could form their own session. That's a thing that's, really important about Sore Fingers, is that it's helped build a community. I think we've had about 5,000 individuals come through Sore Fingers since it started. Mostly from Britain, from England, and British Isles. But so it's quite a lot of people who kind of made friends at Sore Fingers and stuff, and we've lost count of the marriages. Some have dissolved since, actually. It's quite, but then maybe we shouldn't talk about that stuff. Yeah. But it's kind of we don't. Moira and I like music, and we like the company of musicians, and we've enjoyed that. We've played ourselves. We had a band for quite a long time on the bluegrass scene. We did a lot of sound engineering on the bluegrass scene, and eventually ended up with Sore Fingers and did Martin for 15 years. But what gives it the real pleasure is actually the achievement of getting everybody in that place for a week and seeing how they, that they sort of grow. And, like the kids growing up in an adult's world, they have to learn how to sit in a session and understand the protocol and the little etiquette, the session etiquette. And they learn that at Sore Fingers. They're not left out to, and everybody, I think, develops something, and that's what sort of at the end of the day we're proud of. That we do that. We make people happy. We've had people who've turned up when they're distressed because they've had something nasty happen to them in their lives, and they've used Sore Fingers as the place to put them back on their feet and look forward to it. And they've come up and told us, and said, and we go, God, you came and, your wife only died a month ago. Oh, yeah, no, he said, I had to do this. I had to come here because it was the only way I was going to get out of, and he said, it's actually opened my life. He said, I'm set now. And this guy came back, several years. But it was a bit of a lifeline for him mentally. So there's lots of sidelines to Sore Fingers that you don't get in the press. But they don't need to, but it provides a benefit. And it's not just about the music. But, we're just proud of how it runs. We're proud of the team that help us run it. They're all, absolutely marvellous. And they make the event as much as we do, so.
Well, it's a wonderful thing. Wishing you all the best with the first event in the new venue. And it's been great getting to chat to you about it, John. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's, we don't get many of these opportunities, so, to talk about it. I mean, I could talk about it for hours, but, it's nice to be able to tell people about some of the background, some of the other things that matter about it, because on the face of it, it's just a course. You go around, you learn to play the banjo, but if you go, it is an experience. It's not just a set of classes and meals and accommodation. There's a lot of other stuff that goes on, and I know you're planning to come on the Thursday, which is Student Concert Day. That is, it's the pinnacle of the week. So many of the students, actually, that's their big day, because they get to perform on a professional stage with a really good sound engineer, and they are astonishing at what they achieve. They go through the whole band life cycle in 4 days. They get together, they fall out, they row, and then on Thursday they get on stage and they do it, and they do it generally quite well. So it's a fantastic concert. It really is, and it's people achieving, so you can't beat it.
Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas.